Alright, what is up you guys, and welcome back to the Progressive Skills in English Level 3 coursebook. In today's recording, we're going to be going over Theme 3, Managing to be Successful. Right, so let's hop right in. Here we have Exercise A, Activating Ideas. We're going to be listening to some sentences, and we're going to try and find the correct photograph for each sentence. Okay, so I'll play it once first, and then I'll play it again while choosing the correct photograph. So here we go.
Track 3.1.
1. How come they have time to have fun?
2. I always have so much work to do.
3. I am so late. The lecturer is going to be furious.
4. I'm never going to finish all this tonight.
5. If only we had a bigger flat.
6. It's difficult. Every time I sit down to study somewhere, my friends turn up.
7. The lecture is boring, but you still shouldn't fall asleep.
8. The tutorial started at 9. Where have you been?
9. We get a lot of work done together in our study group.
Right, so these were some of the sentences. I hope you're able to find at least some correct photographs. Now I'll play it one more time and I'll be going over them as we go. So here we go.
Track 3.1.
1. How come they have time to have fun?
2. I always have so much work to do.
3. I am so late. The lecturer is going to be furious.
4. I'm never going to finish all this tonight.
5. If only we had a bigger flat.
6. It's difficult. Every time I sit down to study somewhere, my friends turn up.
7. The lecture is boring, but you still shouldn't fall asleep.
8. The tutorial started at 9. Where have you been?
9. We get a lot of work done together in our study group.
That will be 9, right? So A was sentence number 7, B was 1, C was 8, D was 2, E was 6, F was 3, G was 9, H was F, and I was 4. Okay, you guys? So that was exercise A. Now let's move on. Here we have understanding and introduction, exercise B. Let me open this. Here we have management and business studies. We're going to be reading some information about a lecture. So we have lecture 3, managing time. Some managers have to manage people. Some have to manage things, and some people and things. But all managers have to manage time. It is the most basic resource in any organization. If you lose control of time, you will lose control of the organization. Right. Now we're going to be listening to the first part of the introduction of this lecture. I want you guys to make notes of the research source. Okay, so not just any notes, just make a note of the research source. Here we go.
Track 3.2.
I'm going to talk to you today about a problem. It's a problem which all of us face at one time or another. It's a problem which starts when you're a student. If you don't solve it then, it'll get worse and worse. When you leave university and get a job, the problem will follow you. The problem is managing time. It is so important that Harvard Business Press published a whole book on the subject in 2006. Melissa Raffoni wrote in the introduction, managing your time is much more than making a to-do list. Let's see what managing time is all about.
Right, so based on what we just heard, it seems that the research source here is the book Managing Time by Melissa Raffoni. Right, so that was the research source. Let's listen to the second part now, and let's make a note of the sections of the lecture. Okay, here we go.
Track 3.3.
Firstly, I'm going to talk to you about the reason for managing time. Why do we have to manage our time? Then I'm going to explain the basic equation of time management. You know equations from mathematics. 1 + 2 = 3. Well, there is a basic equation in time management which is very useful. Finally, I'm going to look at ways of making the equation balance. As I'm sure you know from maths, equations must balance. Both sides must be the same. How can you make the time management equation balance?
Right, okay, so if we make notes of these sections of the lecture, we can say that she wanted to talk about the reasons, so why exactly do we have to manage time, right? And also the basic equation, just like mathematics, and finally balancing the equation, okay? So again, for the first part, the research source was Managing Time by Melissa Ruffoni. And for the second part, the sections of the lecture were Reasons for Managing Time, the Basic Equation, and Balancing the Equation itself. Okay? So that was exercise B, you guys. Let's move on. Here we have Understanding a Lecture. Looks like we're going to be listening. Okay, it's 3.5 minutes, so I want you guys to take out your notes. You know the drill. Right, so we're going to listen and we're going to complete each sentence. So here we go.
Track 3.4.
So, first, why must we manage our time? The reason is simple. If we don't manage our time today, the problem will be worse tomorrow. Let me explain. This is the basic equation of time management. On one side, we have work. On the other side, we have time available. Equations must balance. Both sides must be the same. Work must equal time available. In other words, we must have enough time to do the work we have to do. How can we ensure that work equals time available? Let's start with the work side of the equation. You could try to reduce the amount of work that people give you to do. Some management books say that you must prioritize. You must decide what is important. Other books tell you to say no to work. But that's very difficult when you're studying. Everything is important. Which things can you refuse to do? None. Tutors expect you to complete all assignments on time. They don't want you to miss lectures because you are behind with your written work. Alternatively, you could try to increase the time available. You could get up an hour earlier or go to bed later, or you could reduce the number of breaks during the day. But I'm not going to tell you to do that. Rest and relaxation is just as important as work, to my mind. So, we can't reduce the amount of work we're given, and we shouldn't try to work every hour of the day and night. Are there any other alternatives? Let's think about the type of work you have to do every day. Basically, there are two types of work. Firstly, there is current work. These are the things that managers or tutors want you to do today. There's usually enough time in the working day to complete all the current work. But there is another type of work as well. This is previous work. These are the things that you promised to do yesterday or intended to do last week or forgot to do last month. All work begins as current work. Your tutor asks you to do an assignment, for example. At that time, all your colleagues are doing the same assignment, so you can get lots of help with current work. But if you don't do current work at the correct time, it becomes previous work. So, today's work is always current work plus previous work. The thing to remember is, do current work today. Don't leave it to become previous work. To sum up, work must balance with time available. You can't refuse to do work, and you shouldn't increase the time available because rest is as important as work. The key point is, always do your current work well and on time. then you should find that you will have plenty of time available without getting up at 5 a.m. every day.
Right, so that was an interesting audio to listen to. Now let's take a look at the sentences here. Here we have number 1. There is a basic time management. What do you guys think? That's correct. We'll say equation. Okay, so there's a basic time management equation. Okay, the equation is time or work equals time available. Yes, she said that like 100 times. So the equation is work equals time available, right? Then number 3, both sides of the equation must balance. We talked about this, right? So both sides of the equation must balance. Okay, then we have number 4, can you reduce the amount of work? We'll say work and then question mark. Let me actually add full stops here. So can you reduce the amount of work? No, because you simply can't refuse to do things. Well, this one's common sense, right? You can't refuse to do things, right? Well, can you increase the amount of, we'll say, time available, right? Time available. No, because no, because rest is as important, we'll say, as work, right? That's in the tutor's mind, and I think a lot of people will agree with that rest is as important as work. 8, there are basically 2 types of, we'll say, work, right? Current work and previous work. There is current work and previous work. Previous work. Okay? Then finally, we have today's work is current work plus previous work, right? So today's work is current work plus previous work. Okay? So again, from 1 to 10, there's a basic time management equation. The equation is work equals time available. 3, both sides of the equation must balance. Can you reduce the amount of work? No, because you can't refuse to do things. Can you increase the amount of time available? No, because rest is as important as work. There are basically 2 types of work. There is current work and previous work, and today's work is current work plus previous work. Right, you guys? So that was exercise C. Now let's move on. What do we have here? Here we have summarizing a lecture, right? So it looks like you guys are going to be writing a summary. Here we have study the final slide from the lecture on the right, summarize the lecture. So here we have the equation for managing time or work. Work equals time available, right? No work or less work means more time, but you can't do that because you simply can't refuse to do things known as work. Okay, and you can't increase time because rest is important. You can't just say, hey, I'll sleep 2 hours a day, right? That's damaging for you. So no, rest is important. So how do we combat this problem? We do current work today, right? Whenever you get an assignment, whenever you have work to do, don't just leave it, right? Get it done. You'll soon realize that you have much more time available, okay? So to start our summary, I'll just give you a possible model for a summary, you guys, but you should write this down on your own. I can say something along the lines of, you must balance the work and time equation, right? You can't simply refuse to do work, and you can't increase the amount of time you have because rest is also important, right? We could also say you should do current work at the correct time and don't let it become previous work, okay? Use these points to help you summarize the lecture, right? Now let's go to the vocab box here before we go to exercise E. Here we have another, basically, current, enough, increase, management, miss, plenty, previous, prioritize, resource, rest. Okay, so that was the vocab box, you guys. Now, here we have exercise E. just a simple fun exercise before we move on. We have transferring information to the real world. What do you have to do today? Make a list. So this is for 1, just simply make a to-do list, right? And for 2, how many items on the list are previous work, work from yesterday, last week, etc. Well, if I had to do or to make a to-do list, I'll probably say that I still have to go grocery shopping, right? I still have to record more videos for you guys, right? Have to go to the gym. All of these are things that I have to do today. And how many items on the list are previous work? Well, I'll definitely say that making videos for you guys is previous work. Quite a busy week. So this is now, I'm now paying the price. So yeah, that's previous work. Going to the gym is, I don't know if you consider it previous work because I had to go a couple of days ago, but I didn't. I missed a day. So this could be considered both current and previous work, right? So yeah, things of that nature. Make your own list and answer E2. Okay? So that was the first lesson, you guys. Now let's move on to the next page. Alright, you guys, so now let's move on to the next page. Here we have exercise A, reviewing vocab 1. Here we're going to be looking at pairs of words, right? Something similar to, for example, yesterday and tomorrow, okay? These are all scrambled, so let's find some pairs, right? So the first word we have is current, and with current means right now, so we can say previous, right? Previous as in something that happened or before, and current is right now, okay? And then we have earlier, so we'll say later, right? That's pretty simple, straightforward. And then we have firstly, we'll say finally, right? Firstly, first, finally, final. You get the idea. Then we have increase, right? So for increase, we'll say reduce, okay? So increase or reduce. Then we have yesterday, right? So we can say tomorrow, right? And then you have either rest or work. So again, one more time, we have current or previous, earlier, later, firstly or finally, increase or reduce, yesterday or tomorrow, and rest / work. Okay? That was exercise A. Let's see, let's go to the vocab box before we go to exercise B. Here we have alternative, amount, balance, behind, equation, expect, priority, reduce, refuse, relaxation, to-do list, and to my mind. Okay, now let's go to reviewing vocab 2, exercise B. What do we have here? All right, so we're going to have to underline the stressed syllable in each word or phrase. Right, so I want you guys to say these words out loud by yourself, right? And tell me, where do you think the stress syllable is? So if I say the word alternative, right? Alternative, where do you guys think the stress is? Well, the stress is on the TER here, right? So alternative, right? The stress is on the TER, the syllable. And then we have amount. Amount. The stress is on the word mount, okay? That ount, okay? So amount. Then we have balance. Balance. The stress is on the BA, balance, okay? Then we have behind. Behind. Stress is on hind, okay? So behind. Then we have equation. Equation. Yes, the stress is on that QUA, equation, okay? Then we have expect. Expect. The stress is on PECT, or ECT, rather. So expect. Then we have priority. The stress here is actually a little bit complicated. It's on the OR, priority, okay? Then we have reduce, deuce, okay? Stress is on UCE, reduce. Refuse, again, same thing. And then we have relaxation. Relaxation, what do you guys think? stress is actually on the A here. Okay, relaxation, right after the X. Then we have to-do list. This one's pretty simple. Do is the stressed syllable. Then we have to my mind. We'll say my as well. Okay, so that was these underlining these stressed syllables. What else do we have? By the way, this is an example of a to-do list, right? There are many forms, but this is one of them. What do we have here? Here we have, okay, skills check 1, signpost, words, and phrases. Right. So what are signposts? Let me give you an example, and then I'll talk a little bit about what signpost, words, and phrases are. So lecturers in English often provide signposts when they're speaking. So have you ever been in a lecture and heard the lecturer say, on one side we have this, and on the other side we have that, right? This is an example of a signpost pair, right? Just like pairs of words here, we have pairs of signposts, right? So if I say on one side we have work, but on the other side we have time available, right? Something else, for example, could be some management books say you must prioritize, right? While other books say you should say no to work, right? All of these are pairs of signpost words, okay? Or not words, pairs. And then we have signpost groups. These are groups of signposts. So for example, if I say, you could get up earlier, right? That is an alternative, right? Or alternatively, you could stay at work later. It's up to you. Or you could refuse to do some of the work, right? It's a group and you have options, okay? Firstly, I'm going to talk about. Secondly, or then, both are correct, I'm going to explain. And finally, I'm going to look at. Okay, so these were some of the examples of signpost groups. You have more than one choice and you talk about them in the correct order, right? So what are signpost words and phrases? As a general idea, signpost words and phrases help you to predict the organization of information in the lecture. They sometimes even enable you to predict the actual content itself. Okay, so again, why is it important exactly to listen for signpost language when listening to your lecture? It's simple. It's because it can tell us the organization, right, as well as the content of the lecture. Okay, but it is mainly used just to organize what the lecturer is saying. Because you hear a lot of lecturers say, firstly I'm going to talk about this, secondly, or then I'm going to explain, and finally I'm going to look at. If lecturers don't say this, you could get lost when writing notes or when simply listening. Okay? So these were examples of signpost words and phrases. Now let's go to exercise C, identifying new skill 1. Here we have the lecturer in 3.1 used all the words and phrases below. Right, so these words are not new. They're from the previous lesson. What do you expect to hear next in each case? Right, so based on the signposts that we just read, what do you expect to hear in each case? So we have first signpost. Firstly, I'm, and he'll probably, or she'll probably say I'm going to talk about. So we'll add, for other signposts, we'll add secondly, right? Or I'll add then, and I'll keep going, right? So the function here is listing 2 points, okay? I mean, I could also say not 2 points necessarily. I could also say finally, right? Or I could also say finally, right? But I have to add secondly or then before I add finally. So function here for this signpost is to list the different points. In this case, it's the different points that I'm going to talk about, right? Then we have B. On one side, dash, 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 and I can say on the other side, and I'll keep going. What this signpost here, this signpost here is basically used to tell 2 points or elements, right? Because I'm never going to say on one side I'm going to do this, on the other side I'm going to do that, and on the one side again. No. Then I'll just use the first one. Okay? So here I only have 2 points or elements. Then we have C. Some management books say, and you'll keep going. I could also say other management books say, and I'll keep going. Well, signpost here is 2 or more points or elements. So I'm perfectly fine with saying 2 points. So some management books say dash, while other management books say this, right? But I could also add more if I wanted to, right? And we have D. There are 2 types of work. Lists of points. So I'll say the first type, and I'll also say the second type, right? So there are 2 types of work. That means I'm also good. It's another signpost to list points. So I have the first type, the second type, and I could keep going if I wanted to, right? You could get up, and the signpost here, its function is possibilities. So you could get up. I could also say or, right? Or I could also say alternatively, right? I can also say you could try, right? All of these are different possibilities. All right, well, I messed that spelling up. Alternatively, right? So you could get up, or alternatively, or you could try. All of these are different possibilities. Okay? So that was exercise C. Again, first signpost here is firstly, I'm, and I'll keep going. Other signposts related to it is secondly, then, or finally, and its function here is to list different points. Then we have B. On one side, I did this, that, and on the other side, I did that. And here I'm listing 2 elements. I can't add more, or 2 points. C. Some management books say dash dash, while other management books say to stop working, for example, or to say no to work. Here, I'm perfectly fine with 2 elements, but I can add more. Then we have D. There are 2 types of work. The first type, the second type. Again, this is another signpost for listing points. Okay? And finally, we have E. You could get up, or I could say alternatively, or I could also say you could try. So what are these? All of these are different possibilities, right? So that was exercise C, identifying a new skill. Now let's move on. Here we have exercise D, recognizing stress patterns. Okay, so we're going to be listening to an extract from the lecture in lesson 3.1, so the previous lesson, right? And I want you guys to focus on the stressed words in each signpost. So I'm pretty sure you guys are now familiar with signpost phrases. Listen for the stress of words in each signpost, right? It'll be here. So I want you guys to underline these stressed words in each signpost. I'll be doing it as we go. So here we go. Have a listen.
Track 3.5.
1. Firstly, I'm going to talk about the reason for managing time. 2. On one side, we have work. 3. Some management books say you must prioritize. 4. There are 2 types of work. Firstly, there is current work. But there is another type of work as well. This is previous work. 5. You could get up an hour earlier or go to bed later. Or you could reduce the number of breaks during the day.
Alright, so that was pretty simple. We underlined these stressed words in each signpost. So 1 was, firstly, I'm going to talk about the reason for managing time, right? And 2, we have, on one side, we have work. 3, some management books say you must prioritize. 4, there are 2 types of work. Firstly, there is current work, but there is another type of work as well. This is previous work. 5, you could get up an hour earlier or go to bed later, or you could reduce the number of breaks during the day. Okay? So these were the underlined or stressed words in each signpost or signpost phrase. Now let's go to exercise E. Here we have practicing a new skill. Right, so what do we have here? Right, so we're going to be listening to some introductions from some lectures, right? And I want you guys to make notes of the organization of each lecture. So we're not just going to be taking notes, you guys. We want notes of the organization, how the lecture is organized based on what you hear from the lecturer. Okay, so here you have 6 blank, or in this case now it's 5, right? These blank pages here, and we're going to be writing the different organization of each lecture as we go, right? So get ready, and here we go.
Track 3.6.
1. There are basically 2 types of work. On the one hand, we have work which other people give us. We could call that external work. On the other hand, we have work which we choose to do ourselves. We could call that internal work. Both types of work are very important. But of course, if you do not do external work, someone will be unhappy. 2.
Right, so before we move on, I'm going to do it one by one just so we don't get lost here. So if I'm going to take notes of the organization of the first one here, I'll say types of work, right? And for external, we have 2 types, right? So I'll say external and internal. And for external, I'll write beside it from other people, right? And internal work is from ourselves. Okay? Pretty simple. Let's move on to 2.
There are 3 types of memory. There is sensory memory, which only lasts for a few seconds. There is short-term memory, which can last up to 30 seconds. Finally, there is long-term memory, which can last a lifetime.
Okay, pausing again. For 2, I could say types of memory. 3, sensory, which can last a few seconds. Short-term, which can last up to 30 seconds. And long-term, which can last up to your lifetime. Okay, let's move on.
3.
There are several ways of moving information into long-term memory. I'm going to talk about 3 of them today. Firstly, there is frequency, which means using new information a lot. Secondly, we have activity, which means doing something with new information. Finally, I'm going to discuss association, which is linking new information to existing information in our memories.
Okay, let's stop for a second. So for 3, we can say moving info or information to long-term memory. For 1, we'll say frequency, which is use the word a lot or use the info a lot, right? 2, activity, which is to do something. And 3, association, which is basically linking the new info with old info. Okay?
4.
Now let's consider global warming. Most people nowadays believe that the planet is getting warmer. But there are 2 ideas about this warming. On the one side, we have people who believe the warming is man-made. We are changing the average temperature of the planet with air travel, car exhaust, and burning fossil fuels. On the other side, there are people who say the warming is natural. It is part of a cycle in nature.
All right. So for number 4, we can say global warming. 1, people believe in man-made global warming, which is caused by air travel, cars, fossil fuels, etc. And for 2, some people believe that it's a natural part. It's basically a part of a cycle. Okay, so we can say natural and it's part of the cycle. Okay?
5.
We're going to look at the solar system today. Just before we start, I must tell you that there is one area of disagreement. It is quite a basic point. How many planets are there in the solar system? Some people say there are 9 planets. These include Pluto, which is the furthest from the Sun and very, very small. Other people say that there are only 8 planets, because Pluto is too small to be a planet. Finally, a few people think that there are 10 planets. They say there is a hidden planet which is 1.5 times the size of Pluto.
Right. So for number 5, we can say how many planets, right? Start the note with a question, right? Some people say that there are 9. That's including Pluto, the furthest planet from the sun, right? And some people say it's only 8 planets, or there's only 8 planets, and that's not including Pluto, right? And some people say there are 10, right? But there's one planet that's hidden, and it's about 1.5 times the size of Pluto, okay?
6. As we all know, the world is running out of oil. If we continue to consume oil at the current rate, there will be no oil left by 2050. Today, I'll examine this issue of global energy shortage in more detail. There are 3 main solutions to the problem. We could try to change our lifestyles. In particular, we could use cars and planes less. Alternatively, we could try to use energy more efficiently. We could build houses and office blocks in a better way so they lose less heat. Finally, we could try to replace oil as an energy source. We could build more nuclear power stations, and we could develop the technology of renewable sources like wind, wave and solar power.
Okay, so to sum up for number 6, we could say energy shortage, right? And for 1, we could say that we have to change our lifestyle, right? So basically use cars less and planes as well, right? 2, or a second option, is to be more efficient, right? Build things in a better way that doesn't consume as much energy, or in this case, oil, right? And number 3 is to simply replace oil as a whole, right? Find other sources or other stable sources of energy to replace oil that is running out soon. Okay, so that was writing notes of the organization of each lecture, you guys. I think that's about it. Now let's move on to the next page. Alright, you guys, so now let's move on to the next page. Here we have identifying a new skill 2. Right, so what do we have here? Here we have, what is the next word in each case below? How could each sentence end? Right, so we have, I promise, he tried, and we remembered. Well, I could say, what is the next word in each case below? How could each sentence end? I can say, I promise to deliver the books tomorrow, right? He tried to assault me, right? I could also say, we remembered the things you asked to look for, right? These are examples, by the way. I haven't started yet. Now let's go to skills check 2 here and see what all of this is about. So we have verb patterns. So many verbs in English are often followed by another verb in the infinitive with to. So let's take a look at this. Here we have examples. The student promised to finish the work quickly. Promised, the verb, it's followed by a to and then another verb, okay? Promised to finish the work quickly. Again here, you could try to, again, reduce the amount of work, okay? Everyone must remember to complete the assignments on time, okay? So this is a verb pattern. Now here we have, listen to some sentences with this pattern, so this specific verb plus to and another verb pattern. How is it pronounced? So you guys are going to be hearing some sentences, or rather examples, and here we go.
Track 3.7.
The student promised to finish the work yesterday. I intend to write the essay next week. Students can't refuse to attend lectures. You could try to reduce the amount of work. Everyone must remember to complete assignments on time. You have to do all the work.
Okay, so these are just extra examples on this specific verb pattern. Okay, so verb, okay, and then you'll add to and another verb. So let's move on. Here we have understanding verb plus infinitive sentences, right? So let's take a look at exercise G here. We're going to be listening to each sentence, and let's number the two verbs together, right? The one before the verb itself, and then two, and then the infinitive. Okay? So we'll number the two verbs together as, for example, 1 and 1, 2 and 2. You get the idea. So here we go.
Track 3.8.
1. You can't refuse to attend lectures.
2. You need to complete a form in the computer centre.
3. Children often want to watch too much television.
4. Some people prefer to live on their own.
5. Most young people in Britain learn to drive at the age of 17.
6. You must remember to read the notes before each lecture.
7. Sorry, did I forget to tell you about the next assignment?
8. The student promised to work harder in the future.
Promise to work harder will be 8. Okay? So these were some of the verbs with their infinitive counterparts. Okay? Now let's move on. What do we have here? Here we have identifying a new skill 3. Let's take a look at skills check 2. So verb patterns 2. This is a different verb pattern now. So some verbs need an object before the infinitive, right? So tutors expect, here you can see the object, students to hand in all assignments. I can't just say tutors expect to hand in all assignments. It's wrong. It doesn't make sense. It's not logical. Okay? Books will tell you to get up earlier. The object here is you. Okay? So if I get rid of the you, it'll be books will tell to get up earlier. Again, not logical. Does not make sense. So some verbs need an object before the infinitive. Okay? So before to get up or to in general. He asked me to help him. Okay? So it's basically the same verb pattern, but you need an object. Okay? What kind of word often comes after these verbs? So expect, tell, asked. Well, like we said, you need an object here. Okay? So yeah, pretty simple stuff. Easy so far. Now let's go to exercise I. Understanding, what do we have here? Understanding verb plus object plus infinitive sentences. Alright, so we're going to be listening to some sentences and we're going to have to write the correct object. Okay, so here we go. Get ready.
Track 3.9.
1. Lecturers expect students to take notes.
2. Time management books sometimes tell people to get up earlier.
3. Friends sometimes want colleagues to stop revising.
4. The researchers asked participants to complete a questionnaire.
5. Parents teach children to behave correctly.
6. Industrial psychologists help managers to understand the needs of workers.
7. The tutor reminded us to read the reference material.
8. The police forced the man to come out of the building.
9. His wife persuaded him to carry on.
10. My best teacher at school encouraged everyone to do their best.
Right, so had quite a brain freeze at the beginning. So the object for each sentence is 1. Students, 2. People, 3. Colleagues, 4. Participants, 5. Children, 6. Managers, 7. Us, by the way, as in us, 8. The man, 9. Him, and 10. Everyone. Okay? Now let's move on to the second part here. We have complete each of these sentences in a logical way. Use one of the verbs from this lesson. Okay, so we have A, I gave the lecturer my essay and she promised to mark it quickly. Right, so now let's go to B. These books are overdue, so I have, what can I say, you guys? Right, so to add, I can say, so I have to take them back to the library today, right? Correct. Now let's go to C. This problem is so difficult, I tried. What can I say here? I can say, I tried to solve it, but I couldn't, right? Makes sense? D, I'm so tired. I don't want. I could say, this is a simple, I could say to study this evening. So I'm so tired, I don't want to study this evening. Okay, then we have E. I asked my friend for help, but, oh wow, I could say, but he refused to help me, right? And for the final one, I can say, I forgot to buy milk, but I remembered to get bread. Okay? So I'll say it one more time because I can't write these here. So I'll say, by the way, these are going to be up to you. So these are not the fixed answers. You could use your own, but this is just an example for you guys. So I gave the lecturer my essay and she promised to mark it quickly. These books are overdue, so I have to take them back to the library today. This problem is so difficult, I tried to solve it, but I couldn't. I'm so tired, I don't want to study this evening. I asked my friend for help, but he refused to help me. And I forgot to buy milk, but I remembered to get bread. Okay? So that was exercise I, you guys. Now let's move on. Alright, so here we have exercise J, identifying a new skill 4. Let's take a look here. We have what is wrong with each sentence below. So before taking a closer look at skills check 4, let's see what is wrong with each sentence. So A, we have, I suggest to go to the cinema tonight. What is wrong, you guys? I suggest to go to the cinema tonight. Yes, to go here is wrong. We should be using ing instead of to go. Okay? B, you must stop to waste your time. Have you ever heard anyone say you must stop to waste your time? I don't think so. So you must stop wasting your time. Okay? Adding ing. Do you enjoy do projects? No, we have to add ing. Now let's read skills check 4 and see what this is all about. So like the previous verb patterns, there are many verbs in English that are followed by another verb in the ing form, right? Just like I said. So here we have some examples. She suggested meeting at 3 p.m. I didn't say she suggested to meet at 3 p.m. See, I can't speak today. She suggested meeting at 3 p.m. Okay? My laptop has stopped working. ing. Okay? A verb followed by another verb with the ing form. I don't enjoy revising for exams. Okay? All of these are different examples. So let's listen to some sentences. And what is the second verb in each case? Let's take a look here.
Track 3.10. I suggested working together on the project.
I enjoy living on my own.
Do you like listening to music?
She hates meeting new people.
I've stopped smoking. Well, I'm trying.
When did you start cycling to work?
Okay, so these were some examples. Let's say them out loud one more time. So we have A, I suggested working together on the project. The second verb in each case, or in this one, being working. Okay? I enjoy living on my own. Living is the second verb. Do you like listening to music? Listening is the second verb. She hates meeting new people. She hates meeting. Meeting is the second verb. I've stopped smoking. Well, I'm trying. Trying here is the second verb. When did you start cycling to work? Cycling is the second verb. Okay? So that was exercise J. Now let's move on. Making sentences with verb plus ing. So we're going to be rewriting these sentences here using the ing form or infinitive with to. So we're going to have to apply either ing form or infinitive with to, whatever, whichever one fits. So we have 1. I'm definitely applying to Manchester University. So if we say he's decided, I'm going to say he is decided to apply to Manchester University, right? He's decided to apply to Manchester University. 2. I work in the lab for 3 hours every day. Right, so she spends a lot of time. We'll say, instead of work, we'll say working, right? Working in the lab, right, you guys? So she spends a lot of time working in the lab. I don't cycle to college anymore, so we'll say he's stopped cycling to college. Okay? So he's stopped cycling to college. Will you check my grammar? Yes, of course. She agreed. I can't say checking here, so I'll say to check my grammar. Okay? Oh. Grammar. Okay? Will you study applied math? Maybe. I'll think about it. He'll consider studying ing applied math. Okay? I'll return the book on Monday. She promised. And what can I say after that? I'm going to use to, by the way. So I'll say to return the book on Monday. Okay? So one more time. I'm definitely applying to Manchester University. He's decided to apply to Manchester University. 2. I work in the lab for 3 hours every day. She spends a lot of time working in the lab. I don't cycle to college anymore. He stopped cycling to college. Will you check my grammar? Yes, of course. So she agreed to check my grammar. Will you study applied math? Maybe. I'll think about it. He'll consider studying applied math. I'll return the book on Monday. She promised to return the book on Monday. Okay, so that was exercise K, adding either ing form or infinitive with to. Now let's move on to editing sentences. Exercise L here. Read the sentences and look at the bold words. Sometimes they're correct and sometimes there's a mistake. Find the mistakes and correct them. Okay, so here we have some sentences, 8 to be specific, right? And here we have some bold words. Sometimes they are either correct or there's a mistake. Let's try and find the mistakes and correct them. So 1, he suggested to study harder at the weekend. This is wrong. I cannot use to here, so I'll say ing. So he suggested, right? Instead of to study, I'll say studying, right? He suggested studying. Well, I messed that up. Studying. Wow, I cannot type today for some reason. Suggested studying harder at the weekend. Okay? 2, her tutor advised her to prioritize her work. Well, this one's correct. There's nothing wrong here, so we're good. You should stop to work at the cafe on Saturdays. You should stop working, not to work. So to is wrong. We'll say working. Now it makes a lot more sense. You should stop working at the cafe on Saturdays. Excuse me. 4. The lecturer told us read this article before the next lecture. Told us, we have to add a to here. I can't just say told us reading or told us to. I have to add, or told us read. I have to add a to here. So told us to read this article before the next lecture. 5. We started discussing time management yesterday but didn't have time to finish. This one's true. We started discussing time management yesterday but didn't have time to finish. It's a correct sentence. 6. How much time do you spend search the internet when you are writing an assignment? Hell, even the sentence doesn't make sense. Okay? So how much time do you spend searching, not search, but searching the internet when you're writing an assignment? 7. He didn't remind his students to revise for the test at the start of the next week. So he didn't remind his students to revise for the test at the start of the next week. This one is correct. 8. You should refuse doing your brother's homework. You should refuse not doing, but I'll say to do, right? So you should refuse to do your brother's homework. Okay? So again, let's go over them one more time. 1. He suggested studying harder at the weekend. 2. Her tutor advised her to prioritize her work. 3. You should stop working at the cafe on Saturdays. 4. The lecturer told us to read this article before the next lecture. 5. We started discussing time management yesterday but didn't have time to finish. 6. How much time do you spend searching the internet when you are writing an assignment? 7. He didn't remind his students to revise for the test at the start of the next week. And 8. You should refuse to do your brother's homework. Okay? So that was exercise L, you guys, editing sentences. I think that's it. Yeah, we're good. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.